All right, guys, we're take a little look at mesh here. We've looked at this play before from the context of the blitz, so we're just going to talk about the mesh concept for today. Mesh is always going to have the same three components, that form what we call the triangle, right? So we're going to have a guy running an under going all the way across. We're going to have a guy running what I'm going to call the over right now, meaning those shallows are going to cross and one's going to be slightly higher than the other. And they're going to have a point guy. Now the Packers run it this time as a straight to the point and a settle, a hook route. Some teams also run it as a dig and it ends up in the same spot. What you're doing is you're creating a triangle from this shallow to the top point to that shallow. And that triangle right there forms the basis of all the reads we make in mesh. And that's why mesh is such a versatile play, because you can run it a million different ways from different formations with different guys of the unders, but it's only one read for the quarterback, which makes it easy. So if you let the play run here, you'll see the near receiver, Davante Adams, goes underneath all the way. Obviously, he ends up being wide open. We talked about in the blitz why Aaron Rodgers bailed out of this one. But it's pretty easy to see the components as we run through. If we get to right here, we can see that triangle. You've got a guy clearing this way. You've got someone up the high point, and you got someone clearing the other way. And that kind of forms that triangle read that we're always going to make. So talking about how we read that triangle, what we want to do first is we want to look at this guy in rhythm, right? So we're looking at him in rhythm. We're seeing, did the middle of the field vacate? And if it did, we're going to take this guy right now. Okay, now in this case, we're getting man coverage, so that we're going to put that kind of in a separate category for right now. Just think of that as zone coverages right now. In rhythm, meaning if this is a three-step drop in rhythm from a gun, we're going to look at this guy in rhythm, and then we're going to look at him after one hitch. And all we're doing is just reading off the mic. Okay, if the mic either bails deep or steps up out of the way, we have a vacated area that the quarterback should take right now. If the mic is in position to potentially influence or carry that route in some way, our read now goes to the linebacker to this side. So in this case, we'll call him the Sam based on kind of the way we're aligning right now. Now we're basically high-lowing this guy where we have a deep in, or as the Packers are running at a point, and we have a shallow coming underneath it, right? If the mic settles, that means the Sam really has an option. Either he's got to step up, which leaves this guy open, or he's got to gain some depth or carry that to vertical, which leaves the shallow clearing. So our read then becomes initially in rhythm, we're going off the mic, looking at this first under. If the mic is still in position to potentially play that ball, we take another hitch, and now we're high-lowing this to that receiver right there. If the mic is carrying and the Sam is carrying, well, then we expect the over shallow, who's coming the other way, to then be open, right? So we're always going to work from under to point to over, right? And that's always going to be our read. Now, that functions extremely well versus cover 2 and cover 4. It does not always function well versus cover 3. And the reason that is because essentially we're running three guys that form this triangle here. Right now in cover 2 or cover 4, we're running three guys through 2 or 3 defenders, right? You're running through the Mike, the Will, and potentially the Sam, depending on how exactly the defense is playing, or the Rover, whatever you want to call that extra overhang player. If we assume a regular 4-2 box, which is what we're looking at right now, we've got the Vikings in a regular 4-2 box. So cover 2, cover 4, we like it. Versus cover 3, it's possible it doesn't work. And the reason being that in cover 3, we have a hook curl player on both sides, and we have a curl flat player on both sides, meaning we have 4 guys because there's no one threatening the flat. Those overhang players can attach themselves inside, which means we have 3 guys running through potentially 4, right? We got 3 guys running through 4, which means the concept doesn't work, which is why most mesh concepts have built into it an access beater, meaning a curl, a comeback, kind of a deep out. And sometimes if you want to be a little more aggressive, a post to try to split the corner into safety in that area. And that's the 3-beater, right? If you're going to get cover 3 and you don't like the mesh component of this anymore, well, then that guy's got to be built in just to attack cover 3. So comeback is normally the option for me. Curl, deep out, those are all common things. Now versus man, it's a little bit different. Man here first, as far as that access throws go, this is a conversion right now, right? Because he's getting press man, he's not going to run a comeback or deep out. He's going to convert this to go, and that's where Aaron Rodgers ends up going with the ball based on the fact that he gets a 6-man rush. He sees this guy come, and then that guy goes as well, and he just takes the alert off the blitz to the vertical. Realistically, I think, in hindsight, he would have liked to have thrown the ball to Davante Adams here, and we'll see on the next play that's exactly what happens. When we're going through man coverage, what we're doing is trying to create traffic. If he's running through underneath, well, we have these 2 guys crossing right now. we're basically setting 2 picks on this player. In addition, the 2 guys covering them in man also end up acting as picks. Really, so when you set a pick with 2, you're really setting a pick with 4. That's why mesh is so good. You can see he's got to run through 4 players to get to his guy, which is why mesh is such a good play versus man coverage. You get those picks and rubs, and it becomes very difficult for defenders to carry. Now, in this case, the corner is because they're getting the tight split and because they're willing to play. If you've watched this particular game film, the Vikings are willing to play kind of this off outside leverage man look a little bit. That's not conducive to them having to deal with, mesh. He's obviously out of position in the first place to have to travel with this one. But that's where that rub, they call this running the hump, right? We got to run the hump right now. We got a bump here. We got to run over the top of it if we can. He ends up trying to go underneath it. And if they have to end up giving the ball to Davante Adams, he's picking up 20, if not more. Pretty easy right now. So really, 3 components to mesh. You've got the triangle for your 2 high zone coverages. You've got the access throw on the outside if you're going to play against cover 3. And then you're going to read the pick versus man coverage. And this is a very basic variation of trips. I personally love running mesh from this trip set with this condensed guy because that's a really hard travel for him. And it's a lot of traffic coming back across. But you can run this, if you were to take this point guy and put him over here, you'd have the exact same play. You'd have the point guy running up there. You'd have the over, and you'd have the under. So you might call a different formation, but the quarterback's not learning anything new. His read is still the same. It's still rhythm to 1 hitch on this under. Then it's the second hitch to the point, and then the third hitch coming across here. So nothing would have changed if we moved the formation around. You also get some teams that move things around. Like they'll tighten this guy down, and he'll run the over, and then this guy will run the deep out, and he'll run the point. They have different ways of exchanging the players and personnel, but ultimately, the end point is the same. Now, if we go to the next play here, this is 15 plays later for the Packers. We literally get the exact same play from the offense and the exact same defense. So it's a great carryover. I would imagine that the Packers went to the sideline and said, we got to run this play again because of the way they're playing man. Now, they don't play man the same way, but we get the same blitz, right? That linebacker comes, he scoots over, and then he tacks on when he sees the running back stay in. You're getting man coverage to this side, man coverage on the far side, although it's not that off outside leverage anymore. But you still get the same pick, right? He's going to come across there. He's going to go set the point, right? And now this guy's got to run the hump or try to undercut it, which is what he does here. Even that's difficult. And now you get an easy completion. And Davante Adams with a head of steam is going to pick up 20 yards or whatever he gets here. You still get the conversion out to the front side here because you're getting a press man instead of an access situation versus 1 high. But this is what it's going to look like in man coverage. Now, obviously, in man coverage, the timing breaks down a little bit. You're not going to necessarily be able to throw this just off of 1 hitch. Aaron Rodgers takes a hitch and a half before getting this ball out. In man coverage, you're just waiting to see him clear this spot. Every once in a while, that guy will pop open too because this guy ends up running into that guy, and he'll pop in their side. Some teams that play man will also try to pass this off. They'll switch, he'll stay, or they have a robber who's going to carry, and then the guy who is, let's say this guy, instead of blitzing, was a robber, and he looked to collision in the middle and then carry it, and then that guy replaces him in the middle. There are solutions and other ways to play it, but assuming you're getting, what 90% of man coverages look like, you should be able to get that pick play there, and then hopefully you're breaking free on the front side. So mesh, really, I think it's a great early install because it's a consistent read for the quarterbacks, and it's something you can do from a million different formations and really just have one set of reads for the quarterback. Definitely good for young players as well. Plus, these are easy throws. We're not talking about, highly difficult throws, throwing the ball deep outside the numbers or, having to make a difficult timing throw between difficult windows. This is a relatively easy short throw for a quarterback. And it's a consistent read across, having 6-10 variations. I think the last place I was an offensive coordinator, I think we had 10 or 11 different combinations of mesh. Now, this is just basic mesh. You have mesh rail. You have, different types of mesh where you involve the back as a fourth component of the read here. So there's definitely different ways to do it. But that's kind of the beginning points of mesh.